Hello boys and girls, and welcome to my first game development tutorial. I am the guide knight, and I am going to do a small 2D game, a small breakout 2D game where you basically control I don't know, a log or some sort of bow hitting device that moves left and right and hits a bow that destroys bricks. Yeah, that's a breakout game. I'm going to attach right now a small video of how it will look in the future if we get that far. This is a video from my reference project. I have come this far there, and I actually plan to add more features in the future, but let's see how things are gonna play out and what you would also maybe give me feedback. What would you like me to add to the game so that maybe we can have fun and edit together. So basically for this game, we're going to use the Godot engine. It's free. You can go to godotengine.org and click the download button. Then you can download the standard version. I'm using the standard version, not the C# supported version, because I like the GD script. It's similar to Python. It's lightweight and easy to learn. So go ahead and download it if you haven't done it already, and you can install the Godot engine there. As for my assets for the game, I used the OpenGameArt.org for the breakout assets, an image from Pixabay, and basically a font from Free Fonts so far. And you can download all of them in this compressed game assets zip from my GitHub page. You can just click on the file. The link is in the description, and then you can click the download. This will download the game assets to your local device. All right, now it's time for us to create our new project. I have already named it Breakout Tutorial and prepared the location for it. You need to make sure that the place where you create the project is an empty folder. So I will create it right now and then click Create and Edit. And we see the Godot Engine editor. It has several like key features that we'll use throughout our tutorial. On the left side, you see basically the scene graph or the scene menu, where we will see all objects that are in our scene. Right now, we don't have any objects in the scene, so it offers us to create a root node. We'll talk about the nodes and what the root node is a little bit down the road. Below that, we see the file system. We would like to add here our assets very soon, but not just yet. Let me just explain to you the rest of the editor. Here you see the main view where you actually will see your game develop and also how it will look and so on. You can move stuff around here, for instance, like this, but you notice that we are right now in the 3D view. You can create three-dimensional games also with the Godot engine, but we will actually focus on the 2D view. So click on the 2D here. There is also the script view. We will be adding some scripts shortly, but don't worry, I will explain to you as we go. So on the right side, we see the inspector and the node editor. The inspector is where you see properties from any object you add. So if I create a new node2D object, for instance, I see that it has a transform, a z-index, visibility, and so on. So basically, I can attach something to this object, and I can, for instance, change its position here manually, or just clicking and dragging with the mouse. It will adjust it as basically a little bit. So I don't want to do that. So I will just delete this and save our first scene. I have created a node 2D. I actually will delete that as well. And now we'll go to other node and then click on normal node. This is the difference between node 2D and node is that node doesn't have a position. So I cannot move it around, which is for me perfect because sometimes I can click on it and move things a bit and misplace it. I don't know. I'll just call it world. This is our first node here. And how nodes work, basically, it's like a tree. So if I add a child to this and then another child to the icon, this means that if I move this child, the icon 1, basically the first icon I added, everything underneath it will move along. But if I move the second icon, it will move only on its own because it is not it doesn't have any children. Basically, you move the parent, you move the children, you move the child, but you don't move the parent. I can reposition that by clicking and dragging and putting it under world. So basically now they are both children of the world node. And if you're wondering what I'm doing, here you have like some options to select things, to move things around, and also like rotate things and also scale things. They are the Q, W, E keys. So Q is for select, W is for move. I cannot select right now, I'm with the move thingy. And then E key is for rotate. So I can rotate things around, select things, and move them around. I can, for instance, also scale them with S. Like, well, I'm not sure if I can actually scale both of them at the same time. Obviously not, but I can scale them. And basically, this is a brief introduction about nodes and parenting and so on. You have to remember that sometimes it's much easier to just move around the parent of a complex structure, and then everything will, along with it will move. For instance, if you do some custom animations or so. But for now, we are going to delete both of those icons because we don't need them for now. Oh, one more thing. Just on the right side, you can also see different objects have different properties. Like the world object currently has very little properties, but this sprite icon, for instance, has some other properties like offset. You can make it centered or not centered. You can flip it vertically, for instance, and so on. But let's get rid of that. So what I would like to have is, first of all, let's save our scene. This is basically where we placed our Godot project. And I would like to create a new folder called worlds. And let's save our world there. So it's also visible here in the file system on the left. Here, worlds, world. All right. So I would like to also create an assets folder. In the assets folder, I would like to extract and place the assets you have downloaded from the GitHub page. Basically, I have prepared them here. They are in sprites and font. So basically select both of them, and then you can copy them and place them inside the editor, or you can just drag and drop them here. You notice that they don't really go into the assets, so I have to select them again, click, hold, and basically now they are in the correct place. And I can, for instance, add some players and some walls and so on. For now, we're not going to do that as also. We want to actually prepare our, well, let's first prepare our editor. So in the editor, why would we want to prepare the editor? For instance, because if I add here a child node, I actually also can add a spatial. So for instance, there's like collision, polygon and collision shape. Then I would actually have to select to know which one I would like to have, because usually everything I need is blue and or purple or whatever that color is. And then it gets messy, because I can, for instance, if I type collision shape, you see that there is the collision shape 2D collision shape, and I have to always like select the one and consider that. I don't want to have that because I'm not doing any 3D right now, so I'll just disable it. You go to editor, then click on manage editor features. Here you see this pop-up come in, and then you create your new profile. Let's just call it 3D game, like This is my 2D game profile, and I would like to not have the 3D editor clickable. It's this one here on the top. And I would also not like to, well, not that. I would like to not have any spatial features, right? So I just disable spatial at all. So there we go. Oops, it's still there. Why is it still there? We forgot to click make current. So make current will actually change the look and feel of the editor. So now it's gone, and that's good, right? So let's start with adding our player. How are we gonna do that? Our player, we would like to move around, right? We would like to move left and right and so on. And it will be also hitting objects. So let's add a child of our world node. You can basically, I'm going to use the shortcuts from now on. You can do it manually by right-clicking on the world and then clicking add child node, or here is the shortcut Control plus A. You can just click here and then Control A, and then basically you can add a child. What I would like to have as a child is kinematic body 2D, and I will call it player. There we go. We have our player, but it's still invisible, doesn't show anything. This is because I need to have a sprite to show. Basically, a sprite is where you attach your texture and make things visible. So I would like to pick this player PNG and attach it to my sprite. How do I do that? The sprite has on the right here a texture parameter or property. And I can basically click my player. Wow, this is big one. We're gonna deal with that later. I can click and drag it to the texture property. So right now, my kinematic body 2D has a sprite. And I can even move it like on the scene. Like if I press W and then move it here, this border here, the bluish purplish, I think it's purple, this color. So this border actually represents the camera. And if I save my, with Control S, I save my scene basically, then I can press F5 or this play button on the top right. So I press the play button and it will ask me to select a main scene. It says no main scene has ever been defined. Select one. Yes, let me select one. And as it happens, we only have one scene. It's called World DSCN. So basically, let's click on it. And there we go. This is actually inside our game right now. And we are running it and it's rendering stuff. And basically, we cannot do anything, right? We cannot move. We can not jump. We cannot do anything. But we see it. So that's good. So let's close it. Let's save our scene again. And let's look here. There is a yellow thingy showing something, right? It says node configuration warning. This node has no shape. Oh, we forgot to add a shape to our player. But isn't the player already having a shape? I mean, we added the sprite. It has a shape, like it has its invisible pixels here and has some sort. Well, Godot doesn't work like that, and you need to define a specific shape for that. So let's create a child of that, basically Control A, and then add the collision shape. Collision shape 2D. The collision shape 2D basically needs to be a child of the player, and it says here, what does it say? Node configuration warning. A shape must be provided. Okay, so we added the collision shape but has no shape. That's a little bit weird, but we can deal with weird, right guys? So what we need to do is we need to basically define the shape of the shape, which is under the property shape. I know it's a bummer, but this is how things work in Godot. No, just kidding. It's normal. So basically, we would like to have a new capsule shape 2D. Let's, oops, what's going on? So we have a tiny small shape here and a big player here. So let's go to the transform of our player and reset it, right? So that it is on top of the shape, and also move the shape in front of the player. Basically, if it is above it, we don't see it. If it's below it, we see it. So basically, the lower, the better. So we click on the shape and we would like to transform it and rotate it 90 degrees by 90 degrees, right? And make it slightly bigger because size sometimes matters. And in this case, I guess it does. So we have this. You can basically adjust it and make sure it covers your whole sprite neatly. So now that we have already done this, I would also like to make our player a little bit smaller because it's super large. So go to the scale section and type 0.15, 0.15, and then do the same for your shape. Or you can first do that actually and then adjust the shape, but it's all the same. So now that we have this, if you want to actually sometimes add another player, we'll need to duplicate everything, and that's not really cool. So let's not do that. Instead, we're gonna save this player as a separate scene. You can think a scene as like something like a template of stuff, right? You can instantiate the scene multiple times in another scene. So I'm going to basically create a template of this player. This is how I'm going to do it. Is I'm going to click the player and I'm going to right click on it, and then I'm going to select save branch as scene. So scene/template. Basically, you create a new folder, call it player, and then you save the player tscn. There we go. Now we don't see the properties of this anymore, but that's all right, because if we want to edit the properties, we can simply select our player scene, double click it with left click, and then we will see everything we actually want to see, right? Okay, so if I say I want to add more of those players, I just drag them around and you see that I have multiple players now on my basically game. And the cool thing is I can move them around here without affecting the position inside the player scene. So if I were to actually like move this by accident, then those things would also move if I have not like already applied some additional transformation to them. So let me move it a little bit to the left, and then I need to reset the transform. Maybe if I reset it to 0, 0, and then I move it again. No, wait. If I move it again, then basically, see, this is actually moving along. So yeah, I prefer to have my objects in the root scenes, basically, where I define them to basically stay in the center. So I would like to reset my player here again to 0, 0. And I think I would like to need to do that for everything, right? So how do I do that? I just click on player and click then this. Make sure the object children are not selectable. So right now, if I don't do this and I click here and then I move it, I will basically be moving the first thing I see, which is the collision shape. Then I click again, then I move it, I will be moving the sprite. Then you can apply Ctrl Z to actually undo anything you have done like me, if you have done it. If you haven't, it's all right, guys, it's all right. Then click make sure the object's children are not selectable. Once you have it, I can no longer just click here and move the collision shape. I'm actually moving the whole player. And now I can also reset the transformation. And I save it, and there we go. Our player here is back to normal, and I can move it if I want to, again, to wherever. So basically I save and press F5 to run the game, and now I say see several smaller players. I still cannot move them about, however. And let's make this possible, because this is a game and we would like to move our players around. So we can actually do that by clicking project and then going to project settings, then to input map. Let's add some new like actions. We already have some defined actually, and we can reuse them, but I like to just make sure and define my own. So let's call it move left. click enter, move right, click enter, and fire. Because maybe in the future we're going to manually start the bow's movement, and that's nice, right? So click on this plus button next to move left, click key, and then just press your left arrow key, or if you prefer the A and D keys, basically press A and do the same for move right. Then basically you can add multiple keys to one command or one action. And I'm going to press space for my fire key. So this is all done. I can close it and save it and run the game. Still nothing, right? Still I cannot move. Why is that? Because we have not told the object or the player that it needs to move at all, right? We just define some inputs and it doesn't know what to do. So in order to do that, we're going to add our first GD script, guys. So are you prepared for that? Let's see. We can click on our player inside our player scene, click here, and then click this script-like button with the green plus sign. It says attach a new or existing script to the selected node. So let's create a new script. Let's just call it player GD. Everything is as it should be, and create it. This will open automatically our script editor. Like this is the 2D editor. We can click on it and go back to the 2D editor, and we can click on the script editor. On the script editor, we see the actual script text we're going to edit, and also the script files on the left side. You can use it to also view documentation. I will explain that in a bit. So basically, guys, in this player script, we are extending the kinematic body 2D. This means that everything that the player script can do is basically the same as the kinematic body 2D object in Godot can do. And as it happens, the kinematic body object can move. And also, it can render stuff at precise intervals. So let's go there and basically make the player move. First of all, let me just explain briefly. This is a comment. Comments are useful for understanding what you are writing and what is happening here. This is a function. Function is something that you can apply inside the object or on the object. And basically, this is the ready function, which means that this is automatically called once the object is ready. For instance, if I were to write here a print statement, print I am ready, and run the game, I will see it 3 times because I have 3 instances of my player, and 3 times the ready function is called by Godot. So I will actually delete all of that because I don't need it, right? And also close the game. What I need is a variable that will hold my velocity. So let's call it var velocity. And this is a vector2 variable. So what this means is that it will have 2 floating point numbers, and it is going to be of 0, 0. I think we can also just call it 0. And if I click Control and hover over the vector2, kinematic body 2D or 0, I can click on it and it will lead me to the documentation part. The documentation part is very useful. You can here click on the search help, for instance. I can go to vector2. If I don't know what a vector2 is, I would like to click here and then open. It opens the vector2 class. Or if I go back to my player and I would like to see what 0 actually is, it is an instance of vector2 with 0, 0. So I can actually use this. This is my initial velocity, which means I'm not moving. 0, 0 means x, like the x-axis, which is left and right, is not moving, and y-axis, which is up and down, is also not moving. So now I need to actually make another function. I'm going to use the physics process function, which is also automatically called by the Godot engine, approximately once every, I think, 60 frames, where we actually can lock our game to 60 frames. We can lock our game to 60 frames, as I said, by clicking on the project and then going to project settings, then debug settings and force FPS, and we can say, okay, this is now 60 frames. As we are here, actually, I would like to also do a small change on the display, like go to display and window. I would like to make sure that the mode is 2D and the aspect is keep. So let me just close it without saving first and start the game. Oh, we need to add a pass here because right now there is an error that our compiler is doing. Okay, locked or lacking permissions. What? Interesting. Anyhow, so basically if I were to resize this window, you see this, basically it is, I think it's actually, this is the keep, right? Because it does not resize the player itself. If I were to change it to something else, oh, it already applied it. So if I were to change it to ignore, then basically we will see that our player is being stretched and whatnot. We don't like to play a game like that, right? That makes no sense. And one more thing, we would like to not only make sure that the mode is 2D and the aspect is keep, but we would like to also make it a little bit taller. So let's go with 768 pixels. That should do it. Let's close it. You can run the game a little bit. It will be a little bit taller than it was before, and it shouldn't be able to stretch it, which is nice, I guess. So back to moving our player, right? We will use an if function to check what is actually pressed. There is an already integrated way to do that. It's called input dot is action pressed, and then the Godot editor should auto complete this for you. You have several options, and let's say I can click on move left and then a colon. If you're not familiar with how you can code in like at all, maybe you can watch a small introductory video on Godot script or simply Python script. It's very similar to Python. Otherwise, you can just follow what I type and do it or ask me a question. But basically, it's a Python-like language. I don't want to invest a lot of time into actually talking about the very basics of the language, and let's concentrate on how to do it in Godot. So basically, here we check that if the action move left is pressed, then we would like to add to our x velocity, right? Because this is a vector 2, it has a x and x left and right, y up and down. We would like to add a move left, like vector or force, to our velocity. So let's go is equal to minus 500. We can actually define this as acceleration. Let's say var acceleration 500. And let's make it is equal to minus acceleration, right? And then we can do elif input is action pressed, or not just pressed, but let's go with pressed. Then move right, and then velocity x again is equal to plus acceleration or only acceleration. So yeah, now we actually need to move our player. As this script is attached to the player and the player is of type kinematic body 2D, then basically we can move it by applying this velocity to the actual kinematic body 2D. So we call a method that is inside kinematic body 2D. Let's see if we can find anything that has move or similar in the name. Let's click Control and left click to see the documentation. Okay, kinematic bodies are special type of bodies that are meant to be user controlled. Great, our player is meant to be user controlled. Let's scroll down to the method section to see what we can use. Is on ceiling, is on floors. Those seem useful for maybe different type of games, right? We don't probably need them here. what else do we have here? Kinematic 2D collision, move and collide. Oh, this has move already in it. And also vector 2, move and slide. I will go with move and slide. So let's click here, moves the body along a vector. If the, I think I clicked one too many, moves the body along a vector. If the body collides with another, it will slide along the other body rather than stop immediately. If the other body is a kinematic body 2D or rigid body, it will also be affected by the motion. And let's see what it says about move and collide actually. I can press Ctrl F and search move and collide. Press it, click. Moves the body along the vector. The body will stop if it collides. Returns the kinematic body. Okay, so our body will actually collide with the bow and the wall, but for the wall we want to not stop immediately, but for the bow we actually, well, for the wall we want to stop immediately, but for the bow we don't want to stop immediately. So let's go with move and slide here. So just copy it and go back to our player script. So we do move and slide and then basically apply velocity. You see that there are more options, like there is the linear velocity, the up direction, the stop, slope, and so on, but they have those grayed out values are actually default values. And you don't need to provide them all, you just need to provide the one that doesn't have a default, which is the first one. So in that case, our velocity will be the only thing we need. So let's save it, press F5, and then we can actually move around, right? And we have different players, but we don't stop. So first of all, let's get rid of our additional players and let's make it stop. We can get rid of the players by just going to the 2D, then world, and then pressing Q to select, and then delete basically, or maybe just delete player 3 or player 2. And then let's move our player by pressing W to the bottom, because this is what we would like to be, right? This is where the player will be. Also, another very useful thing is to enable grid snap. Like this is done by clicking this button or Shift G to enable grid snap, and then basically you can snap to the grid. That's amazing, right? And also, I would like to go to our player and make sure that the sprite is not centered, right? And also, I would enable grid snap here as well and move my collision. Well, I cannot move my collision because I have enabled make Turing unselectable. So I will deselect that, select my collision shape, and move it to, well, let me for now just move it like that, like a noob, because it's easier. Sometimes it's a bit weird with grid snap. Sometimes it's very useful, but sometimes it's weird. So I can now configure my grid snap here to, let's say, 16 by 16 pixels. And yeah, this is a little bit below. If I actually render it, it will be a little bit below. So let's disable it for a little bit and move it above. You can, I'm actually pressing Control, and then you can move it just up or like left and right. So let's just keep it like that. It's at position. Okay, let's go. Let's make it a round number. 748, right? 748. It's the Y position. It's a little bit above the bottom, but who cares, right? So now if we actually start the game, the player is at the correct position, but it doesn't stop. So let's go back to our player, go to the script, and then we are going to apply a friction. Let's call it friction. Let's say the friction is 200. And we can use another function. So basically velocity dot move toward. It says, okay, apply move towards, so this vector is going to be actually ending up in the final two state of the vector. So let's say we would like to have the endpoint to be 0, right? So this means we would like this vector to stop having whatever movement it has to be just 0. And then we will apply the second parameter, which is basically the delta, how much it will, how fast it will apply this. And let's go with friction. So if we now start the game again, if I press, okay, nothing happens. That's interesting. Why doesn't it happen? Because it has a float. This is the return value, the float. Okay, so we are not actually taking into account the return value. So basically, let's say velocity x equals velocity x dot move toward. So we want the x part of the velocity to move towards 0, and we are assigning, like on the left side is assigning the velocity x to be this reduced velocity by the move toward function. Let's save it and run it again. Okay, so it has no function on the float, so we're just going to have to apply it to the velocity. This is what this error message says: non-existent function move toward in base float. This is very useful to read those. I advise you to do it always. So let's run it now and see if it works. Okay, it says invalid set index on base. Okay, so basically, let me try to just assign the velocity, because I thought it was returning a float. Return 6. So this is interesting. Invalid set index x on base vector 2 with value type vector 2. So basically, let me try this. Okay, it works like that. Funny, I thought it was just returning a float, but for some reason, I guess it returns the whole vector. So now I press the button and it stops. If I would like it to stop like much slower, I can reduce it, the friction, and I press it and then it stops very slowly. But I kind of like the 200. So one final thing maybe, the delta here is, you see this delta is called basically telling you what is the time difference between this and the previous frame, right? Let me see what it says about the delta. Code during the physics processing step of the main loop. Physics processing means that the frame rate is synchronized to the physics. That is, the delta variable should be constant. It is only code if physics processing is enabled. Okay, so basically it goes with roughly 1/60th delta, so 1/60. And in some cases, for moving stuff around, it is advisable to use the delta to like make sure your object moves at a certain constant pace. But I think in the move and slide, you actually can read in the documentation this: the method should be used in node physics process. Okay, we are there. As it uses the physics step delta value automatically in calculations. So basically it uses it automatically. So I'm not entirely sure, but I think this means we don't need to assign it explicitly. But for some stuff, like I think move and collide, you actually need to assign it explicitly. All right, guys, this was, I guess this was the end of the first video. We will be adding the walls and maybe the bow in the second video. I may have been a little bit too detailed and maybe not so detailed in some places. So if you have any questions or anything you don't understand, or would like to actually like grasp better, make sure to ask me or comment, and I will try to answer it in a follow-up video or in a comment. So if you like the video, give me your thumbs up, and you can also subscribe to see the full series. I plan to upload at least, I don't know exactly, maybe at least one video a week, or I actually try to do it faster, but I cannot guarantee when I will have the time for the rest. So take care, guys. Stay safe and enjoy whatever you are enjoying. Bye bye.